It's 250 years since the death of George Frideric Handel, our country's greatest adopted musical hero, and tonight's prom celebrates his legacy with a performance of his oratorio, Samson. Well, Samson was written within just a few weeks of Messiah. It's based on John Milton's poem, Samson Agonistes, and it deals with the final episodes in the life of the Old Testament hero. It's a vast work in 3 acts, tonight with 2 intervals, and it sets out the pattern for the great biblical dramas of Handel's last years. On stage this evening, the orchestra and choir of the English concert and the new company chorus. They're going to be joined by a stellar cast of British singers, including the tenor, Padmore, soprano, Susan Gritton, the countertenor, Iestyn Davies, and basses, Neal Davies and Christopher Purves. All directed from that harpsichord at the front there by the distinguished Baroque conductor, Harry Bicket. As ever, you'll find lots more information about tonight's concert on our website. Just go to bbc.co.uk/proms. You'll find full programme notes there. And as always, we're keen to hear from you. Do send us your comments and your questions for the tenor, Padmore, who'll be singing Samson. We'll be talking to him later this evening. Send your questions to the usual address, proms@bbc.co.uk, or you can text us on 83111. Time now to introduce my guests for this evening. They're the acclaimed mezzo-soprano Christine Rice and the Director of Communications at the National Youth Orchestra, James Murphy. Very warm welcome to you both.
Lovely to be here.
Christine, I know you are a huge Handel fan. Why?
I am indeed. Well, you know, obviously he writes beautiful tunes. You can't get away from that. But also he has powerful humanity, his understanding of a variety of emotional conditions that we fall into and we fall prey to as human beings, and our weaknesses, and he has so much sympathy for that, and he writes them so beautifully, so effectively, that we can really get under the skin of the character. And it's also a pleasure to sing, it's a joy to sing, it's really good for the voice. I would recommend it to any young singer. It's really absolutely the best.
There you go, Christine Rice's tip for success, sing Handel.
Definitely.
Now, James, tonight, this oratorio deals with one moment, really, in Samson's life. Just trace out what happens for us.
Absolutely. This is not the swarthy, philandering bad boy we know from the Bible or from Hollywood. What we're actually going to see is Samson at the end of his life.
All the hair gone.
Shaven, embittered, blinded and captivated by the Philistines. And he spends much of the first act really bemoaning this awful situation he's in. He's very penitent. In the Bible, he's quite heathen, but here he's calling upon Jehovah a lot. And first of all, his father comes to visit him, and then his best friend, Micah. And the two of them try to console him. His father even tries to see if he can get him released. But sadly, in the first act at least, there's not going to be a note of redemption.
Now, in terms of the big moments for Act 1, certainly, it has to be Total Eclipse, this aria, which is about Samson's devastating blindness. Just talk us through it. It's a typically Handelian, exquisitely poignant moment, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Well, what Handel does so amazingly is that, you know, you get these high points, and the music is, you look at it on the page, and it's the most simple thing. I mean, you would almost sort of turn the page and kind of brush over it until you heard it. And that's where he's so powerful, in fact.
Well, we look forward to hearing that and the rest of Act 1 imminently. In a moment, we will be welcoming on stage our cast for tonight. They are the tenor, Padmore, playing Samson, the countertenor, Iestyn Davies, his friend Micah, bass Neal Davies, his father Manoah, and the soprano, Crowe, singing the Philistine woman. Harry Bicket, here to conduct the orchestra and choir of the English concert and the new company chorus in Act 1 of Handel's Samson.
solemn feast today gone held relieves me from my task of servile toil. Unwillingly their superstition yields this rest to breathe heaven's air, fresh blowing, pure and sweet. Awake the trumpet's lofty sound. Awake the trumpet's lofty sound. Awake, awake the trumpet's lofty sound. The joyful sing, the festival comes round. And Dagon, king of all the earth, captive thus, the scorn and gaze of foes, O cruel thought! My griefs find no redress, they inward prey like gangrened wounds, immedicable groan. Torments, alas, are not confined to heart or head or breast, to heart or head or torments, alas, are not confined to heart or head or breast, but will a secret passage find into the very inmost mind. With pains intense oppressed, that rob the soul itself of rest, that rob the soul itself of rest, that rob the soul itself of rest.
Samson arm is clad in iron, useless a tempered steel, or coat of mail.
To complain of, but myself, who heaven's great cast could not in silence keep, but weakly to a woman must reveal it.
Much less in mind, once is red glory, now a grave. We come, thy friends will know, to visit thee.
Welcome, my friends.
Which shall we first beware? Thy bondage, or lost sight?
Oh, loss of sight, of thee I most complain. Oh, worse than beggary, old age, or chains. My very soul in real darkness dwells. Total eclipse. No sun, no moon, all dark, all dark amidst the blaze of all glorious light, all cheering ray, to glad my eyes with welcome day. Total eclipse. No sun, no moon, all dark amidst the blaze of moon. Why hast deprived thy prime decree? Sun, moon, and stars are dark to me. Sun, moon, and stars. Sun, moon, and stars are dark to me. Sun, moon, and stars. Sun, moon, and ground. But had I sight, how could I heave my head for shame? Thus for a word or tear divulged to a false woman God's most secret gift, and then be sung or proverbed for a fool.
Here comes thy reverend sire, old Manoah, with careful steps and looks as white as down.
Alas, another grief, that name awakes. Brethren and men of Dan, say, where is my son, Samson, fond Israel's boast, inform my age.
A signal now, in low dejected state, as in the height of power, see where he lies.
Miserable change, is this the man, renowned afar, the dread of Israel's foes, with an angel's strength, their armies told, himself and body. Now, an equal match to guard his breast against the coward's spear. A good wish more often proves our pain. I prayed for children, and I gained a son, and such a son as all men hailed me happy. But rule me now a father in my stead, the blessing drew a scorpion's tail behind. This plant, select and sacred for a while, the miracle of all, was in one hour ensnared, assaulted, overcome, let burn his foe's derision, captive. Poor and blind. My glorious deeds inspire my tongue, whilst there's of joy from whence it flow, whilst there's of joy from whence it flow. Whilst there's of joy, from whence it flow. My glorious deeds inspire my tongue, my glorious deeds inspire my tongue, Have befall thy son, sole offer I, sole cause. My griefs for this forbid mine eyes to close, or thoughts to rest. But now that strife shall end, be o'er the throne Dagon presumes to enter lists with God, who thus provoked will not connive, but rouse his fury soon and his great name assert. Dagon shall stoop and long be quite despoiled of all those boasted trophies won on me. The God of Israel sleep. Arise with dreadful sound. Arise, arise, arise with dreadful sound. Arise with dreadful sound. With dreadful sound. Arise, arise with dreadful sound. With dreadful sound. Arise. till shame and trouble. Oh, my conscience is till shame and trouble, till shame and trouble. All thy foes shall cease, till shame and trouble. All thy foes shall cease, till shame and trouble. All thy foes shall cease. Why does the God of Israel sleep? Arise with dreadful sound. Arise, arise, arise with dreadful sound, and clouds encompass round, encompass round. And shall the heathen hear thy thunder thee? But tempest of thy wrath thou raise, in whirlwinds that pursue, brought till shame and trouble, till shame and trouble. All thy foes shall cease, till shame and trouble. All thy foes shall cease.
True prophet mayst thou be, that God may vindicate his glorious name. Nor let us doubt whether God is Lord or Dagon. Then shall they know that he whose name, then shall they know that he whose name,
neglected in this loathsome plight. It should be so. Why should I live? Soon shall these walls to double darkness yield. My genial spirits droop.
Act 1 of Handel's oratorio Samson. Mark Padmore played Samson, Iestyn Davies was Micah, Neal Davies sang Manoah, and Lucy Crowe, the Philistine woman. Harry Bicket conducted the English concert. The leader was Nadia Tzvina, the chorus of the English concert, and the new company chorus. Well, we've come to the first of our 2 intervals this evening. Each is going to be about 10 minutes long. My guests, Christine Rice, James Murphy, still here with me. James, it's pretty powerful, impressive stuff, that first act.
Nothing's really happened plot-wise, but the drama is all there. Thanks, I think, to the singers, the way they are just so... the crystalline enunciation of the emotion in every syllable. I mean, for example, that eclipse was total. And I think also the way the players are enunciating as well. I mean, they remind me that in Handel, the singers are the voices of the characters, but the instruments are the soul. I mean, in that air about the torments, the sort of jagged pangs on those violins are really stirring my heart. I'm very excited because the drama is going to increase from here on in.
Well, definitely worth saying at this point that we are going to be joined by Mark Padmore in the second of tonight's intervals. Please don't forget, if you have any questions for him, we would love to hear from you. Email proms@bbc.co.uk or text us on 83111. Christine, it is a pretty stellar lineup tonight. I have to say, I love Iestyn Davies. I saw you and he last year together in Parthenope.
Yes.
It's a fantastically exciting cast of singers, this, isn't it?
It is. And of course, originally Handel had a British cast and the reviewers were damning about those singers. But we are so much more fortunate because, you know, these days we have world-class opera singers, in Handel particularly, from England, from Britain. So it's a real thrill to be here and hear them.
And a treat for them that the word setting in Handel's oratorios, the setting of the English text is so exquisite, and not by an Englishman, let's say.
I know, that's right. And actually, some of the Italian operas, he didn't get quite right in some of the recits, and you sometimes have to sort of rejig it, but never in the English. And it's beautifully set.
On the subject of the libretto, can we just do a shout out for Newburgh Hamilton, who actually took Milton's massive, sprawling text, which would take all night to recite, and he boiled it down into something much more concise. And I don't know about you, but there was that line that Manoah sang about setting his song to notes of sorrow and tuning his harp to notes of woe. And actually, Hamilton took that from a separate Milton poem called The Passion, but he just bunged it in there because it's really right for that moment of the emotion. It's a fantastic libretto.
And that's a perfect example of the word painting. You know, they have this long melisma on the word joy, but he's not tempted to do it again on woe, which he could have done. But that would have made it too sentimental, and actually it's a much deeper feeling than that the father has. You know, there is no expressing this woe. It is pure blackness.
I'm fascinated by the relationship that Handel had with Newburgh Hamilton, because apparently before this, the only thing he'd done of note was write a farce called The Petticoat Plotters. So it's quite a leap from that to this.
I'm interested that, Christine, you already mentioned Handel's restraint, that he can throw everything at this music. He can also be very restrained. Harry Bickett's approach to this music is absolutely about clarity and precision, isn't it?
Yes, it is. He has a lightness of touch. He has such a sympathy for the players, for the singers. He's a great listener, actually, and I know, because I've worked with him, you can absolutely rely on him. He will give you the speed that is perfect for you, and he will also listen. So if suddenly in the you know, you get carried away and you decide to, you know, extend something, he's there with you.
Great. Well, I'll catch up with both of you later. Lovely to talk to you for now. I understand that tonight's conductor, Harry Bicket, is downstairs in the green room with Charlotte Gardner.
Thanks, Susie. Yes, I have indeed been joined by Harry Bicket, fresh off the stage. Harry, welcome and congratulations on an absolutely wonderful first act.
Thank you.
Now, why did you decide to bring Samson to the Proms tonight, out of all of Handel's other oratorios?
Well, I think you do Samson if you have a cast. That's the simple answer. I mean, Handel wrote this for a very famous tenor of his day called John Beard, who by all accounts was an amazing actor as well as an amazing singer, someone who really connected with the text. And in a way, he helped Handel forge a whole new language of writing in English and writing oratorios. And in Mark Padmore, I mean, we have, I'd say, the equivalent, someone who can turn a phrase and just in one vowel sound, in one word, convey so much depth of meaning.
Gosh, yes, absolutely. Talking about the orchestra for a little bit, I noticed in the rehearsal this morning that you were very intent on keeping their attack very spiky with plenty of rhythmic bite. How do you go about preparing an orchestral interpretation of a Baroque work?
Well, I mean, spikiness isn't everything. I think one of the things in the Albert Hall is that it is cavernous. Even with all these people in here, the acoustic doesn't change very much. And in the Baroque music, I mean, everything in the language is about articulation. It's like speech. It's like us talking. We talk about singing so much with the strings. We talk about speaking. And the thing the orchestra really want to know is, what are they saying? And how can we match exactly that sound? And in a cavernous acoustic, you tend to speak a little bit more clearly and with a bit more articulation. So that was what I was trying to get them to do.
And how much do you bring into account your knowledge of how people performed it in Handel's day compared to your own personal taste?
A mixture of both. I think if you tried just to be totally sort of musicological about it, it would be a very dull performance. I mean, basically, I try and use what we know in order to give us ideas of how it might have been, but then it's impossible not to make it your own, otherwise you're just being a fraud, really.
Well, talking of making it your own, you're directing from the harpsichord. It looks like a bit of a juggling act, and one minute you're standing up, the next minute you're sitting down. How do you know when to wave your arms and when to play the notes?
I don't. It's a simple answer. I mean, it's one of these things that I've always done. The orchestra, you know, an orchestra like this doesn't need a conductor to keep time for them. Well, sometimes maybe. But most of the time they need a conductor to help shape a phrase. And I can do that as easily from the keyboard as I can with my arms.
So would you say that performing Baroque music is actually a more collaborative process between yourself and the orchestra than a lot of the later repertoire?
Well, an orchestra like this, which is made up of, you know, I mean, every single one of these string players could be leading tonight. I mean, they're amazing chamber musicians and fantastic musicians in their own right. There are a few doctoral people there. I mean, there are people who know more about it than I do, you know. I mean, so it is totally a collaborative thing, and rehearsals are much more of a conversation than some kind of dictatorial scenario.
Well, it was a real treat actually listening to your rehearsal earlier. One of the things about it is that it's just a really, really dramatic piece, and that's when there's actually no action as such happening on stage. What do you think is the difference in dramatic design between Handel's oratorios and his operas?
Gosh, that's a big question. I mean, of course, this piece comes from Milton, the Samson Agonistes, which, if you've ever read it, is an overpowering, tragic poem. It was very celebrated in its day, and there used to be public readings of this piece. So to combine that with Handel's music, you know, I tend to go right back to the text. I mean, I've been loving reading this piece again because of all the things he misses out as well. Of course, it was a piece that was well known to audiences in those days, so much more recognition than maybe we have now.
Well, I think that people that haven't heard it before are going to be absolutely loving it this evening. Harry, thank you ever so much for talking to us, and we're really looking forward to the next two acts. Now, Susie, it's back to you.
Thanks very much indeed, Charlotte. Well, we heard Harry Bicket there. He mentioned Handel's opera. I'm delighted to be joined now by one of this country's leading opera directors, John Copley. John, it's a pleasure to have you here this evening.
Hello.
I know you've been a lifelong fan of Handel. How and when did that start for you, that passion?
I started as a boy singing in church and at school. And I sang treble to start with, and then when my voice darkened, sound like a mezzo-soprano, I started singing O Thou That Tellest, of course. And I sang Handel all my life. And then I was a countertenor, a very, very bad countertenor, but I loved doing it. And then I started directing it.
So you went from singing to directing. Handel, it seems to me, is always a man of the theatre, whether it's his instrumental music, even oratorios, opera. There is always that fundamental sense of drama pushing the music forward, isn't there?
Well, I think Handel writes the most amazing music to text. It's sometimes forgotten that texts inspire him. And, I mean, some of the things tonight, total eclipse for obvious reasons, but the way he understands text and sets it to music. Where'er you walk, in Semele, cool gales shall fan the glade, trees where you sit shall crowd into a shade. And he writes that divine melody for Jupiter to sing to Semele. You can't beat it. It's superb.
Where as a director then do you start? Because there is a decision to make. You start with an idea, a concept, or you start with the notes on the page, you start with the text. Where do you start?
Well, I start listening to my heart. It sounds very corny, but it touches my heart so much. This does tonight. And, I mean, a thing like Semele is such an 18th century idea. You need the 18th century scenery, I think. Lots of people don't. But I did a very sort of drop-ninghorn production at Covent Garden, which lasted for many years, and it was rather liked. It was very beautiful to look at. And it touched our hearts rather, I think.
What's the secret to a good Handel production? Or rather, what's the secret of a bad Handel production as well, because there are people who get it terribly wrong and some people who get it terribly right.
Well, you have to have wonderful singers, but you do have to have the most marvellous conductors, because they shape it, as Mr. Bicket was just saying, who I worked with happily at the Met a couple of years ago. But I have done one. I did a terrible semele for a very small company in America with a conductor who couldn't do it. And eventually I had to go to the management and say, you know, he can't do it. And they said, oh, we know that, but he paid for it, so you've got to get on with it. He paid for you, John. So
well, fair point.
We got to the orchestra rehearsal that night, and Juno had got somehow a pair of tap shoes, and she went down to the front and she started tapping her tempo, paste. Iris hence away, Iris hence away. It was the first time the orchestra, harpsichord, everybody was together. By the time we got to the first night, everybody was wearing tap shoes. They all tapped their way through, and it worked. And
So
I think the audience thought
pulling
that
it together.
was written by Handel, that everything had this metronome.
Or an interesting take from you as the director to make them wear tap shoes.
Bizarre. It's the only way we could get through.
Now, you've done so many Handel operas. You've done Semele, you've done Acis and Galatea, you've done a huge number of them. Any that you haven't done, anything still to explore on the Handel front for you?
No, because I love Ariodante and Julius Caesar so much. I just want to go on doing them. I really do. With great singers. And, you know, I've had the very best singers. I've had Dame Janet, you know, Tomlinson and Valerie Masterson. And now in America, there's a fantastic group of Americans, Susan Graham, Ruth Ann Swenson, Stephanie Blythe and David Daniels. They are fantastic Handel singers.
Good, so Handel singing in rude health and hopefully very many more productions from you. John, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for joining me this evening. Well, let's go downstairs now to meet one of the more unusual instruments in tonight's orchestra. Over to you, Charlotte.
Thanks, Susie. Yes, well, if any of you were intrigued by that fabulous pair of plucked instruments in tonight's orchestra, here's your chance to find out a little bit more about them. I've been joined by Bill Carter, who's one of the musicians with the English concert. And, well, Bill, what's one of these?
Well, it's called a theorbo, and it's the biggest sort of lute that there is. And if you imagine something like a guitar on the short neck, and then the long neck is like a bit of a harp stuck on.
It sounds like it's the bass notes there, basically, isn't it? And what's its role within the orchestra?
Well, we play harmony, the same as the harpsichord, the same as the organ.
Okay. Now, unlike other members of the orchestra, your part isn't fully notated, is it?
It's not totally written down. Handel's pretty specific. I mean, he shows the chords. He lets us decide how many notes to play and things like that. And that's a safe, quick way of writing for harpsichord, organ, harp, lute, or what have you. Anything that could play harmony.
And is it mostly an accompaniment instrument? Is there anything written for solo theorbo?
There are solo pieces, yeah, but they're not so many. And I think that the pieces that do exist are very good. They're kind of hard because they were, you know, for professionals. You have to really make an investment if you want one of these. So it's a small literature, but nice.
Well, it's absolutely wonderful. It sounds absolutely wonderful, and thank you very much for talking to us. I better let you get back to the orchestra.
I get back to work.
Yeah, Susie, back to you.
Thanks very much indeed, Charlotte. Great stuff. Well, Christine Rice, James Murphy's still here with me. James, we're about to move on to Act 2 and some new characters we're about to meet.
Yes, here comes Dalila, or Dalila as she's
Yes.
known here. And this is quite interesting because Milton obviously didn't like her very much. He called her, as you'll hear, a hyena and a serpent. Whereas I think Handel had a slightly different view because her music is very entreating, very tender. She's surrounded by a chorus of comely virgins who sing about her chastity and her innocence. And there's quite a lot to like about her. Also, he cast Kitty Clive, who was a really popular singer in the day, who the audiences adored. So obviously he was trying to say something about her goodness somehow. However, Samson doesn't buy it, and there's a big slanging match, Traitor to Love. So listen out for that.
Yeah, there is also a big chorus about the deviousness of women and the fact that men really should make sure they're kept very well under the thumb. Women do not come out terribly well at this piece. Whatever James says, I'm sorry. I'm on the side of it's slightly misogynistic in parts. What do you think, Christine?
Well, I think actually that he's right, that there's a sympathy there. And what I would object to is if there was a one-dimensional writing for the female characters, and Handel never does that. He never does that. He always resists that temptation. yes, indeed, the chorus, you know, God's universal law is that man should triumph over woman and woman should be in awe of her husband. But, you know, it's a patriarchal religion, so, you know, what else is there going to say about it?
Also, I think Milton was a bit peeved with his first wife. It hadn't gone very well, and so he's kind of like working through a few things there. I mean, he says that women have no place for valour, virtue, wit or grace, that if they're going to make a choice, they usually make the wrong one, and even Samson himself says something like, it's very rare you'll get a good one.
Well, Milton rather famously wrote 4 tracts about divorce, and none of them paint a great picture of the women involved, so let's cast him aside as a slightly, you know...
Yes, it's normally a woman scorned,
slightly
isn't it? But this
character.
time it's Milton scorned.
How does that play then to a 21st century audience, this kind of stuff? Because to an 18th century audience, it must have played very differently, one feels.
Yes, it would have played differently, I'm sure. But I mean, you know, what we do is these works of art are living, and so of course we have our own response to it, and it's just as valid. And we hear something, it doesn't mean that we're converted to believe that that's the case. We will have our own personal response to the music.
And James, as you've already mentioned, the seduction is through the music, and the fact that Dalila sings this exquisitely beautiful music, that's where the power of this
there's
lies.
Some extremely dainty, beautiful. I am seduced by it. Now, perhaps you might think she's just putting on an act and it's very manipulative. It's up for the listener to decide, but I know that the singer tonight is going to really win our hearts over.
Now, another sort of big architectural feature of this act is the huge double chorus that ends it. A very Handelian thing to do, that he bookends this in a very operatic, dramatic way.
Yes, except often his operas don't involve choruses. In fact, any chorus that the operas have tend to be sung by the ensemble cast. So there's an extra dimension that arrives with the oratorios when you get these huge choruses and you have all those voices singing. So it's a very exciting end.
What's really fun is that the Israelites and the Philistines sing the same thing to their separate gods, and when they actually call out their gods' names, the Israelites give a massive, meaty Yehovah with all the
bass
orchestra.
voices, tenor voices, alto voices
The whole gang's there,
Yeah.
and then suddenly he leaves the Philistines on their own without the orchestra. So I think Handel's kind of showing his allegiance there. It's a bit like we were saying, it's like a football mob, isn't it?
It
Cheering
is.
for their
There's
side.
sort of Chelsea cheering for their side, and then there's St Paul's Girls Choir joining in for Dagon.
It's also worth mentioning there's another character coming up, Harapha the giant, the Philistine giant, so watch out for him as well.
Great stuff. Well, thank you to both of you. Just waiting for our cast to come on stage with Harry Bicket. Cast are, of course, Mark Padmore, Iestyn Davies, Neal Davies, Lucy Crowe, joined now by Susan Gritton to sing Dalila, Christopher Purves as the giant, Harapha, and Ben Jonson, the Philistine, for the second act of Handel's Samson.
Liquid brook or fountain flowed, I drank, nor envied man a cheering grey. But what availed this temperance, not complete, against another object more enticing? I laid my strength in lust's lascivious lap. Trust yet in God. The Father's timely care shall prosecute the means to free the hence. Meantime, all healing words from these my friends admit. Let none his secret action scan. Let none his secret action scan. For all his best, though oft we doubt, of what his wisdom brings about. For all his best, though oft we doubt, of what his wisdom brings about. Still his unsearchable discourse blesses the righteous in the close. Blesses the righteous, blesses the righteous, blesses the righteous in the close. Still his unsearchable discourse blesses the righteous, blesses the righteous in the close. My evils faultless are. One prayer remains, a speedy death to end my miseries.
Relieve thy champion, limit to thy strength, and turn his labors to a peaceful end. bedecked and gay, comes this way sailing like a stately ship. It is Dalila, thy wife.
My wife, my traitress, let her not come near me.
She stands an eyes fixed, with head declined, like a fair flower surcharged with dew. She weeps, her words addressed to thee seem tears dissolved, wetting the borders of her silken veil. With doubtful feet and wavering resolution, I come, O Samson, dreading thy displeasure. But conjugal affection led me on, prevailing over fear and timorous doubt. Out, thou hyena! 'Twas malice brought thee here. These are the arts of women false like thee, to break all vows, repent, deceive, submit, then with instructed skill again transgress. I would not lessen my offense, yet beg to weigh it by itself. Mutual weakness, mutual pardon claims. How cunningly the sorceress displays her own transgressions to upbraid me mine. I to myself was false, and thou to me. Bitter reproach, but true. But pardon then I to my folly give. Take thou to thine.
Constrain thee. No, 'twas raging lust. Love seeks for love. Thy treason sought my hate. In vain you strive to cover shame with shame. Once joined to me, all judged your country's woe. Parents and all were in the husband lost. Your charms do ruin another way. My sense depraved, my strength enslaved, as I in love you did betray. You did betray, as I in love you did betray. Your charms to ruin led away, my sense depraved, my strength enslaved, as I did love who did betray. How great the curse, how hard my fate, to pass life's sea with such. How great the curse, how hard my fate, to pass life's sea with such a mate, with such a mate. To pass life's sea with such a mate. How great the curse, how hard my fate, how great the curse, how hard my fate, to pass life's sea with such a mate. charms, thy trains, thy wiles, and fair enchanted car. Their force is nulled. Where once I have been caught, I shun a snare. These charms, this prison house, I count the house of liberty to thine.
Let me approach at least, and touch thy hand.
Not for thy life, lest fierce remembrance wake my sudden rage to tear thee limb from limb. At distance I forgive. Depart with that. Now triumph in thy falsehood. So farewell.
Thou art not deaf to praise and willing to seize. Thy anger rages an eternal tempest. Why should I humbly sue who pays the spoon? Within me upon thy name denounced.
Traitress to love, I hear no more. The charmer's voice, your art before. The charmer's voice, your art before.
Traitor to love,
Traitress to love, traitress to love. I hear no more the charmer's voice. Your art before, before your arts. I hear I hear no more. I hear no more. I hear no more. Traitress to love. Traitress to love. The charmer's voice. The charmer's voice. You're asking for your heart. I hear no more. I hear no more.
she's gone, a certain manifest, a sting discovered in the end.
So let her go. God sent her here to aggravate my folly. Favored of heaven is he who finds one true. How rarely found. His way to peace is soon.
Thank
not Samson to condole thy chance. I am of Gath, men call me Harapha. Thou know'st me now, of thy prodigious might much have I heard, incredible to me. Not less displeased that never in the field we met to try each other's deeds of strength. I'd see if thy appearance answers loud report.
Away to know, when not to see, but taste.
Ha! Dost thou then already single me? I thought that labor and thy chains had tamed thee. Had fortune brought me to the field of death, where thou wrouldst wonders with an ass's jaw, I'd left thy carcass where the ass lay thrown.
Boast not of what thou wouldst have done, but do.
The honour certain to have won from thee, I lose, prevented by thy eyes put out. The combat with a blind man, I disdain. at a blow, though I could only at a blow of victory to conquer thee, of victory to conquer thee, for glory, for glory in thy overthrow, for glory, for glory, for glory in thy overthrow. Camest thou for this, vain boaster? Yet take heed, my heels are fettered, but my hands are free. Thou bulk of spirit void, I once again, blind and in chains, provoke thee to the fight. O Dagon, can I hear this insolence to me unused, not rendering instant death? Go battle, coward, go! Go battle, coward, go! Go, go! Lest vengeance lay thee go, in safety by my rock, by my rock be his deed. Fly, fly! Go battle, coward, battle, coward, battle, coward! Go battle, coward, go! Lest vengeance lay thee go, in safety by my rock. On thy God, presume not on thy God, who underfoot hast trod, who underfoot hast trod, thy strength and thee at greatest need. Who underfoot hast trod, thy strength and thee at greatest need. Oh, battle, power, soul, oh, battle, power, soul, oh, battle, power, soul, oh, battle, soul, battle, soul, battle, soul, on thy God. Vengeance, lady, oh, strength and thee, fly, greatest need, safety by the Lord, presume not on thy God, presume not on thy God, thy strength and thee, at greatest need, and greatest Coward, in safety by my Lord feet. Hail, hide the proof, if Dagon be thy God, with high devotion, invocate his aid, his glory, his concern. Let him dissolve those magic spells that gave our heroes strength. Then know whose God is God, Dagon of mortal make. Oh, that great God, from sons adore. Then arise, attend thy sacred feast. Thy honor calls, this day admits no rest. To song and dance we give the day. To dance and song. To dance and song we give the day. Which shows the universal sway. Which shows the universal sway. To song and dance we give the day. To dance and song we give the day. Which shows the universal sway. Which shows the universal sway. To dance and song we give the day. Which shows the universal sway. Which shows the universal sway. Protect us by thy mighty hand, and sweep this race from out the land. Protect us by thy mighty hand, and sweep this race, and sweep this race from out the land. To song and dance we
That was the second act of Handel's oratorio Samson. Mark Padmore as Samson, Susan Gritton, Dalila, Iestyn Davies as Micah, Neal Davies, Manoah, Christopher Purves as the giant Harapha, Lucy Crowe the Virgin and Ben Jonson the Philistine. The orchestra and choir of the English concert and the new company chorus conducted by Harry Bicket. Well, we've another interval of 10 minutes now before the final act of Samson. I'm delighted to be joined by the historian, the broadcaster and expert on all things 18th century, Tristram Hunt. Tristram, great to have you here.
Lovely to be here.
There is this old joke about our greatest composer, this country's greatest composer, actually being a German import. But he was a huge hit in George and London, wasn't he, Handel?
Oh, an enormous hit. And this is the irony about Handel, is that what we've heard this evening is about partly the construction of Britishness. He is the great national composer. Because you have to remember, in the 18th century, we were really forging an identity, coming out of the English civil wars, at war with France and Spain, trying to find a sense of ourselves. And what Handel provides is exactly that sense of a history and a sense of purpose, because this history we've been hearing about Israel is Britain. And Britain is the promised land, and everything we hear about Israel is really a celebration of Britain and Britishness, and that's why he was loved. I mean, we've heard a lot this evening about him as a musician, about this human element to him, but he was also a propagandist, he was a polemicist, he was a politician in many ways.
And as you said, a very smooth operator in terms of knowing instinctively what it was that the British public was hungering for, that Handel was an opera composer and suddenly became an oratorio composer. And then that signalled such a change of mood in Britain that, you know, opera was somehow Italian and frivolous, and oratorio was very English and puritanical.
No, absolutely, and it was a controversial moment when this happened, and, you know, Walpole was aghast at what was going on, but he catches that moment with King George II of trying to create this idea of national purpose, and it catches the mood. And Samson is enormously popular. Obviously, we know the Messiah, after a hiccup, then becomes enormously popular. And it begins in the mid-18th century and then accelerates. And then what's so interesting is that performances of Handel's work become in themselves acts of Britishness. And so Handel becomes part of the national story. But, you know, a lot of Germans have been part of our national story, Prince Albert and everywhere onward. But no, Handel is particularly important.
And in terms of entertainment in 18th century London, there seems to be this dual pull between heavy-handed morality on the other side and extreme excess and celebration, the two sides of the Georgian character really, I mean, which Handel represents, you know, a bit of a glutton and a drunk, but at the same time writing these very heavily religious works.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you framed it in the idiom of religion, but you have these two Londons in a sense. You have Handel's London and Hogarth's London. So you have the West End of Hanover Square, the Cavendishes, Mayfair, this world which is growing up in the 1720s, 1730s, 1740s. And then you have the world of Holborn, St Giles in the Fields, Covent Garden, the Rates Progress, Gin Lane, and further on, the discovery of Wapping and the East End, all those other scary places. So you do have this great contrast in Georgian London. But the thing about Georgian London, and this is really London's moment, I mean, the 18th century, Johnson and Boswell and Garrick and Gibbon and Handel and Hogarth. I mean, this is the cultural high point, and that's why everyone's coming here. Voltaire's coming here, Montesquieu's coming here. So for Handel, it's a wonderful place to be at. But there is that, with all great cities at the cusp of creativity, there's that edge of danger. There's that tension between the East End and the West End.
And there's also, of course, the sense of the bubble that collapsed. I mean, there is the South Sea bubble moment, not unlike what we're experiencing currently economically. No. That London, where Handel lives, in Brook Street, there's this huge property boom, and suddenly everything just explodes.
Oh yes, this is the sort of the great moment of London becoming this global emporium. The docks are beginning to take off. You've got the trade coming in from empire. You've got a lot of money from slavery, and you have this sense of commerce and enterprise, and with it a broadening middle class attracted to exactly this kind of music and these kind of concerts. Although, you know, his base was always in the court and with royal favour. But no, there was an air of prosperity and an air of almost unbelief. But with it also, crucially, is this sense of the purpose of England, this Protestant nation threatened by Catholic continental Europe, delivered from Catholicism time and again. It is Israel, and Handel points to that time and again.
Great. Well, look, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Enjoy the third act of Samson. Great to see you this evening. Thanks very much indeed, Tristram. Let's now go downstairs to the green room and join Charlotte.
Thanks, Susie. Yes, I'm delighted to be joined now by our Samson tonight, Mark Padmore. Mark, congratulations on an absolutely wonderful first couple of acts. Now, Handel wrote some amazing music for the tenor voice, didn't he?
Yes, particularly in the oratorios. In the operas, there are really only two operas, I think, which have absolutely sort of top-rate roles. But in the oratorios, he had this wonderful tenor, John Beard, who he discovered and wrote a lot of the great roles for him, including Samson and his last oratorio, Jephthah. And really, I think in these, he discovers a voice that he can use in the most wonderfully expressive way, with lots of different contrasting types of arias.
And how does he use the voice? What is so special about how he writes for it?
Well, in Samson, you notice that he really covers a whole range of emotions. You get an extraordinary aria like Total Eclipse in the first act, which is so sort of melancholy and sort of raging against the injustices of the world. And then you have something like at the end of the act, Why Does the God of Israel Sleep, with coloratura and sort of showy-offy type things. And in the third act, you have one of Handel's most beautiful tenor arias, which is Samson's send-off at his last appearance. Still got another half an hour or so of music to go after it, but it is tender and reflective and sort of inspirational in many ways.
All these wonderful adjectives. It's such a dramatic oratorio. Does it feel any different at all to performing an operatic part?
In many ways not. I mean, I did Handel's Jephthah in a production by Katie Mitchell in Welsh National Opera and English National Opera, and in many ways I think, I mean, Handel had written all his operas pretty much before for the oratorio period. And he took on this sense of drama that he discovered in all his operas, and absolutely enjoyed it in the oratorios, and then added chorus. I mean, you have these incredible sort of chorus scenes in many of these works, and that's a wonderful dramatic element that many opera composers have never equalled.
Now, one of the big things about the dramatic moments is the vocal fireworks, the pyrotechnics. Is Handel very difficult to sing?
Usually he's sort of predictable in the coloratura. You actually find that Bach is much more difficult because you can't sight read Bach in quite the same way. Usually with Handel you know what patterns are going to come up, and you can sort of predict them, and you can practice them and everything. He writes very well for the voice. It sits in people's voices extremely well, and it's actually very grateful to sing most of the time. Sometimes gives you a few problems of long breaths and stuff like that, but essentially, no, he knew his voices, and he tailor-made the parts for the voices that he knew. So
would you say that the challenges are actually more dramatic?
In a concert performance, I think it is very important to capture the imagination of the audience, to give the drama its sort of full weight, and I think it's wonderful to work with a group like English Concert with Harry Bicket, and to really try and get that sense of an occasion, and to make the audience sort of hang on to the words, hang on to all the things that are going to occur during the oratorio.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your characterization, because you've said in the past that you like to subvert audience expectations rather than necessarily giving them what they want or expect. So how would you describe your Samson tonight? What makes him tick?
Well, he's a deeply miserable man. I mean, he and raging against the world in many ways. In a way, I think that's a sort of intriguing problem for a singer with an audience, because usually you're trying to sort of get the audience on your side to sort of make them love you and everything. He's really kind of against pretty well everybody, and yet he gets this incredibly sort of heartfelt music as well, which does allow you to see the sort of the inner side of him. And as I say, the Act 3 aria, I think does that to the greatest extent, where you really sort of, I mean, he's going off to die, but I think it's where you sort of feel the most care for him, the most sort of emotional in the whole piece.
Well, we'll look forward to hearing that one. We've actually got an email coming from one of our viewers. It's a performance scratches question, actually. Tom Robson would like to know, do you have any comments for young tenors like myself who want to make sure that they do all they can in the correct treatment of Handel?
Oh, that's a sort of a big subject, but again, I always go back to words. I mean, unless you're going to make sense of the piece, of somehow sort of get people to sort of hang on what you're singing, however beautifully you do the vocalises, in the end I don't think it counts very much. So I would enjoy the dramatic possibilities to the nth degree, as much as you possibly can. You've got to work hard on the technique as well.
Well, I'd say that you're doing all of that tonight. Mark Padmore, thank you so much for talking to us. We're all enormously looking forward to the final act. Susie, back to you.
Thanks very much indeed, Charlotte. So a couple of minutes now before Act 3 of Samson. Christine Rice, James Murphy still with me. Christine, we haven't yet talked about the legacy of the oratorio tradition, that of course what we're seeing is the beginnings of a whole British singing tradition that Handel virtually invents on his own.
That's right, yes he did. He spent 20 years writing operas, and then was so frustrated by that world and the temperamental singers, not that I know any of those of course, but the temperamental singers and the loss of money on these productions, that he walked away from it and he concentrated on oratorio, and he virtually created this as an art form. And it never dropped out of fashion in the way that his operas did. So we've always had them. The Messiah, of course, hugely popular. Every choral society every year gets the opportunity to sing it. So yeah, it was the beginning of something very special.
You talked about choral societies. This notion of amateur music making, amateur singing, of these groups of singers popping up all over the country in these new towns suddenly would just take Handel as part of themselves.
Well, he was a national hero, and I think everyone wanted a piece of him. And I think in the 19th century, you'd get performances of the oratorios with as many people as we've got in the auditorium here tonight. You know, he's a real icon for the nation.
Do you think it's changed, Christine, the way that British singers approach singing work like this? Is there a specific kind of teaching, a kind of singing style that's developed because of this oratorio tradition?
Well, there are opportunities there for young singers. I mean, that's still absolutely one of the grassroots occasions when you can go and sing in concerts, because your local choral society are there performing these works, and they need the soloists, and they draft in the young singers. So yeah, it's so vital that we keep that going.
What's very exciting now is the way we're seeing oratorios being transposed into the opera houses. I mean, I believe Deborah Warner's going to have a stab at the Messiah on stage next year. And last year in Buxton, they did a production of Samson set in contemporary Gaza. Because if you think about it, of course, we've got the story here of a kind of a suicide bomber in a sense. You know, he's a martyr who goes and kills himself for religious purposes. So it's very topical.
And I mean, Handel's such a theatrical writer. I mean, just because he left the opera world behind, you know, he didn't leave the theatre behind. He brought it with him to the concert stage.
I think you're really going to feel that in the third act of this. This is where all the drama kicks in. It's like he's getting his virility back, and you can hear that in the orchestra. The arias get shorter, the choruses get meatier. Harapha's got some incredibly astonishing, lively and big octave stuff going on. Micah has a lot more exciting stuff to come. There's a moment as well when Micah and Manoah are having a conversation, and then the orchestra just rip through like a bolt of lightning, and that's the sound of the temple being pulled down by Samson. It's incredibly operatic.
And this is the act where the action really ramps up, although we don't necessarily see it happening before us. Huge amounts of action suddenly is reported to us as the audience.
That's right, it's very Greek, isn't it? The method that he's using. We don't sort of see it here on the platform, but we hear about it. And of course it gives this tremendous ending where you come out the other side, you know, the gift of returning to the true God.
And he's redeemed. But it's Samson, who made his own Samson and Dalila opera 100 years later, he staged it all. He had the temple coming down, he had the shaving of the head, he had the lion. And all.
He still had a budget, obviously.
Yeah. Or you could just say Handel leaves us with our imagination. Slightly more subtle, depends how you want to look at it, really. You've already talked, Christine, about the oratorios never really falling out of favour. It's interesting that the operas obviously did. They've had a huge revival in the past decade or so, but does it feel like time that the oratorios took more of the foreground again?
Well, no, I think because we have this relationship between the opera stage and the concert platform, you're now finding that operas are being staged, operas are being sung in concert form, and oratorios are being staged. So there's a sort of intermingling of the art forms now.
Great, well, fantastic. Lovely to speak to both of you. And applause now for members of tonight's cast. Returning to the stage, Mark Padmore, Samson, Iestyn Davies, Micah, Neal Davis, Manoah, Christopher Purves, Harapha, Lucy Crowe, the Israelite woman, and Ben Johnson, the messenger, with tonight's conductor, Harry Bicket, to perform the final act of Samson by Handel.
I fear him not, nor all his giant brood. Samson, to their lords thus bid me say, this day to Dagon we do sacrifice, with triumph, pomp, and games. We know thy strength surpasses human race. Come then, and show some public proof to grace this solemn feast. I am an Hebrew, and our law forbids my presence at their vain religious rite. This answer will offend. Regard thyself. Myself, my conscience and internal peace. I so broke with servitude to yield to such absurd commands, to be their fool and play before their God, I will not come. My message given with speed brooks no delay. Pray Presuming slave, presuming slave, to move the wrath, for mercy sue, or vengeance too, dooms in one fatal word thy death, presuming slave. For mercy sue, or vengeance too, dooms in one fatal word thy death, dooms in one fatal word thy death. Presuming slave, consider and it be too late toward your learning shaft of fate, toward your learning shaft of fate. Consider and it be too late toward your learning shaft of fate, toward your learning shaft of fate. Consider it be too late. Consider, presuming slave, toward your learning shaft of fate, toward your learning shaft of fate.
Reflect then, Samson, matters now strain up to the height whether to hold or break. He's gone, whose malice may inflame the Lord's.
Shall I abuse this consecrated gift of strength, again returning with my hair, by vaunting it in honor to their God, and prostituting holy things to idols?
How thou wilt here come off surmounts my reach. 'Tis heaven alone can say both us and thee.
to feel some inward motions which do bid me go.
In time thou hast resumed, again he comes.
Samson, this second summons send our lords. Haste thee at once, for we shall engines find to move thee, though thou wert a solid rock. Fain were thou art, if tried. I yield to go, not through your streets be like a wild beast trail. You thus may win the lords to set you free. In nothing I'll comply, that's scandalous so sinful by our law. Brethren, farewell, your kind attendance, now I pray forbear.
So mayst thou act as serves his glory best.
Yet but that spirit which first rushed on me in the camp of Dan, inspire me at my need. Then shall I make Jehovah's glory known. Their idol gods shall from his presence fly, scattered like sheep before the God of hosts. Sleeps to his several grave. Each fettered mirth, I cheer and wine. Praise him with mirth, I cheer and wine. Sound out his power in notes divine. Praise him with mirth, I cheer and wine. Praise him with mirth, I cheer and wine. Of this most horrid sight. O countrymen, you're in this sad event too much concerned. The accident was loud, we long to know from whence. Let me recover breath, it will burst forth. Tell us the son, the circumstance differ. Gaza yet stands, but all her sons are fallen. Sad, not to us, but now relate my whom. My Samson done, the sorrow lessened still, and nigh converts to joy. Oh, Manoah, in vain I would refrain. The evil tale too soon will rudely pierce thy aged ear. Suspense in news is torture, speak it out. Then take the worst. In brief, Samson, is dead. The worst indeed. My hopes to free him hence are blasted all. But death, who sets all free, hath paid his ransom now.
Yet we give the reins to grief. Say first, how died he? Death to life is crowned, oh shame. Unwounded of his enemies he fell. At once he did destroy, and was destroyed, the edifice where all were met to see upon their heads, and on his own he put. O lastly overstrong against thyself, a dreadful way thou took'st to thy revenge. Glorious, yet dearly bought. Sons of Israel, now
your stream and cleansing herbs, wash off his flooded gore, then solemnly attend him to my tomb with silent obsequies and funeral train. lamentation now, no cause for grief. Samson, like Samson fell, both life and death heroic. To his foes a ruin is left, to him eternal fame.
That was the final act of Handel's oratorio, Samson. Mark Padmore played Samson. Iestyn Davies was Micah. Neal Davies sang Manoah. Purves, Harapha. Lucy Crowe was the Israelite woman, and Ben Jonson, the messenger. Harry Bicket conducted the English concert, their leader, Nadia Svina, along with the choir of the English concert and the new company chorus. Gritton, tonight's Dalila, and Mark Padmore, Samson, taking bows to triumphant applause here in the Royal Albert Hall. Well, that brings us to the end of tonight's prom from the Royal Albert Hall. Tomorrow we'll be back here on BBC4 with a concert given by the West Eastern Divan Orchestra, a truly remarkable group of young musicians from across the Arab-Israeli divide. Under their founder-conductor Daniel Barenboim, they'll be playing a programme of iconic romantic masterpieces, Liszt's Preludes, Wagner's Prelude and Liebestod from Tristan and Isolde, and the Symphonie Fantastique by Berlioz. That's at 7:30 tomorrow evening, but for now, from all of us here at the Royal Albert Hall, a very good night.